Hello and welcome to This Versus That, your number one source of amusing and intense would you rather situations. I am your host, Tim. Now it's time to choose this or that. Today's episode, would you rather read a really great book or watch a great movie? Now, before we really get into this, we're going to set a couple of rules. We're going to have some rules for this one, okay? Rules are, for the great book, you have to read a physical copy. You can't do audiobook. No listening to you can't have somebody read it to you either. Like, no audiobook, no having your friend read it to you. You have to have the physical copy of the book. For the great movie, we're going to set the rule of you're in a home theater, it's to the nines, and that's it. Like, whether you're with friends or you're by yourself, doesn't matter. Just home theater over, standard movie theater. I just prefer home theater. It's not, but that's not where we're here. Okay, let's talk about the really great book. Now, I absolutely love reading. I also acknowledge that a lot of the books that I really love reading are 13 to 20 plus hour reads. We're talking thick books. Like, I am a huge Tolkien fan, but a lot of them are long, and it's a lot of walking and a little bit of action. But I still really enjoy reading them, and still angry that Tom Bombadil or The Scouring of the Shire wasn't in the Peter Jackson films, but that's not why we're here. Pros to reading a really good book. You're going to have all the details of the book. I mean, well, of the story, not the book. We're reading the book, but we're going to have, like, all the details, like who says what. We're going to have more information, and because it's all words, you get a sense of creativity as to how the world that you're experiencing looks. Like, yeah, you're going to get descriptive words on, like, how a character or how a scene looks, but other than that, like, the world and its characters are kind of your oyster. Like, and I kind of appreciate that. I like the idea of kind of having, like, a vague image of how a character looks in my head, and then, you find somebody else who's read the book, and you guys can come up with, like, a completely different, like, idea on how this character looks. For example, while keeping to the Lord of the Rings trilogy, or, well, the books as a whole, I always saw Frodo as sort of a strawberry blonde, maybe a little bit of brown in his hair hobbit, and Sam just to have black hair. And so when I watched the Peter Jackson films, like, it's not how I imagined them. Like, I still love the actors, I love, how the characters look, but it was just not how I imagined it. And so that was just, it was interesting, just having this sense of, like, that's not how I pictured them. Weird. But it's totally fine. And then, I mean, keeping to that same line of thought, like, we've all experienced, that one person who's read a book and just completely hates how somebody was designed to look, like, in a movie. It's like, that's not how they're supposed to look. They're supposed to look like this. And then, me being me, I ask him, okay, well, where does it say that? Well, that's just how I pictured it, and that just looks a lot better than this. And it's like, okay, calm down. It's not that big of a deal. There are many better hills to die on, especially when it comes to book to movie or book to show adaptations. You're gonna be fine. We have bigger battles to fight. But yeah, you can just, the escapism that you get from reading a really good book is just, there really isn't a word for it, because again, like, these books just take hours, and so you don't sit there for the 13 hours and just keep reading. You take it in a chunk, like let's say an hour a day. That's 13 days of this sense of escapism and the chance to kind of like transport yourself somewhere where you would rather be in that point of time. Like it's just a soothing thing. Like one of my favorite books, the read is about 36 hours. There's no way I can just sit and read a 36-hour book in one sitting. But, you break it up into, an hour a day chunk. That is over a month of having the opportunity to kind of like subconsciously like recharge myself while something else is going on. And it's just really really nice, and just your vocabulary, like somebody is like, I don't want to come off as harsh, but like somebody is smart or like has a good like good mind based off of their vocabulary and how they present themselves and how they talk, and you get that feeling that like, oh yeah, this is a well-read person, and you ask that individual like, hey, well, what kind of books are you reading? Like you really can tell a lot about a person by the books that they read, like what media they take in and how they absorb like information and ideology. It's just like like what kind of person you're dealing with when you run into somebody who just reads books. And if you're and great books are subjective. Like what one person will consider to be a masterpiece, somebody else can consider to be absolute garbage. It's just interesting. There's just so many benefits that you get as an individual and just society as a whole when you have a really good book. Okay, now let's flip it over to the other side. Watch a great movie. Now, most of my audience, we're all working. We're all just trying to get through life. We have 100 things we need to get done in a day. We have more things to do than we have time to do them in. And when you finally get home, you're just tired. You really don't want to do anything. You kind of just want a potato. I get that. I know when I come home, I don't want to do anything that requires thinking. I just want to exist and stare blankly at a screen for who knows how long. And don't get me wrong, like I love watching movies. I have this problem with movies where it either has to be like it's won every award possible, or it has to be like this obscure or this really really awful movie that just everybody thinks is like the dumbest thing on the planet. There's no in between. I don't watch okay or good movies. It is one one or the other of the two extremes. And I do have guilty pleasure movies. I do have movies that I repeatedly watch. If I had $1 for every time I watched the old animated Hobbit film in the last year, I would probably have like at least $10-15. I know it isn't a lot, but when you think of a single movie in a year, it's a bit of money. And for those of you who've never seen the animated Hobbit film, the old Rankin and Bass film, it's the entirety of the book in one movie. Okay, maybe not the entirety. It obviously leaves some stuff out, but you have everything from when Bilbo leaves Bag End to the time the end of the Battle of the Five Armies and Thorin dies. Like, it's everything in one film. So just having that one movie over and over again. Like when you find a great movie, it's a movie that you will just watch over and over again. Like, and there's this sense, like even with books, there's just this sense of comfort of watching the same movie over and over again, and that sense of importance of that film just becomes more and more important, like the or just an intricate part of you the better the movie is. One of my all-time favorite movies is To Kill a Mockingbird. I will watch that at least twice a year, and it's based off of a really amazing book, and just how true to the book that they keep it is pretty phenomenal. I highly recommend the old black and white one if you have a chance to look up To Kill a Mockingbird. First of all, read the book first, then watch the movie. But there is something good about, the lights are down low, you have your favorite snacks, and then like a really important thing to me when it comes to movies is the sound, like the music in the movie, like that is really important because it sets the mood. Like try watching a movie, no matter how good or how bad it is, and have it on mute, or if you're really tech savvy, like legally purchase the movie and then just remove the music and see how well the movie holds up. Like it's really hard, but no, you can still get a lot of good out of a great movie. Like I know I'll have days, like especially when I was significantly younger, I would watch a movie. I would go into the movie just feeling like a potato, and then like as soon as the movie was over, like I was pumped. I was ready to go out, live the day, go out and do things, come home hours later. I think like a personal example for me that did that for me was back when I was again significantly younger. It was when the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen came out with Sean Connery. Yes, I know it's a bad movie. They could have done a better job with it. I acknowledge it, but I remember like the first or second times I had seen that movie, I went into it just kind of feeling like a potato, but as soon as the movie was over, like I ran up to one of my friends' house who just lived up the street. And I'm like, "Hey, I just watched this really cool movie. Do you want to go on like an adventure? We're gonna go. We're gonna do all the cool things. We're gonna live life. We're gonna grab it by the horns." and it's interesting because you can get a different sense of being energized from movies than you can from a book, at least in my personal experience. So again, movies have great things to offer, and because they're only an hour to a few hours long, like it's easy to digest important information for these movies, especially when they are coming from books. Again, to keep to the Lord of the Rings theme, like yeah, the movies leave out a lot, but you still get a really good idea in order to hold up a conversation about the universe. It isn't until you do read the books, and depending on which books you read, you can get more in depth into the conversation. I do also find movies a great way to discover great books. Like I have a lot of friends who have seen the Lord of the Rings films but never read the books, but as soon as they read the books, they're just like, oh yeah, now everything makes sense. And I'm really glad that I watched the movie, because now I know about these really cool books, and that's an important thing. We shouldn't snuff that either. At the end of the day, it is a really tough one, but I would have to say I would rather read a really great book. Just I love the feeling of a book in my hand. I love laying in bed, my little lamp is on, just reading before I go to bed for like an hour and a half. It's just one of my wind down. It's a great way to get to sleep. I do have to, yeah, great, really great book. There's too many benefits that you get from a book that you can't get from a movie. So final answer, really great book over great movie. Guys, thank you so much for tuning into this episode. What did you guys pick? Did you guys pick the really great book, or did you pick a great movie? Guys, leave your answer in the comment. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I will talk to you all later. Bye-bye.